We have actually a really interesting interview that I think has some very key points, some very astute, well thought out points by the OG Diablo creator himself. This is David Brevik, who is the original lead programmer and then the project and design lead for the sequel of the original Diablo game. So we're talking the most OG you're going to see. Now, as we get into this, he does make some statements about Diablo Immortal. He gets asked how he's felt about the direction Blizzard has approached the series. His response to that is, it wasn't the direction he would have gone in, but I don't have any choice. I left Blizzard and it is their IP, so they can go the directions they want to go. And he says, I think they have done a good job with Diablo, and I look forward to the new products in the IP. So specifically, he says Diablo. He doesn't call Diablo Immortal out by name here, but he says he thinks they did a good job with Diablo, but maybe Immortal is not the direction he would have taken it. Pretty reasonable, fair, not too outrageous take. However, as we scroll down here, he does get into some more detail and gives a little bit more examples. So I think this right here is a very interesting point. And he's the first person I've seen actually state this. And since he's the OG creator of Diablo himself, I thought it was especially interesting to see him state. It is really difficult when people compare Diablo today with Diablo 2. Firstly, people have a tendency to look at Diablo 2 through rose-colored glasses. It makes it hard to compare any new product to something that people remember so fondly. This is a very smart point. For instance, I know I'm guilty of doing the same thing. Games like Super Metroid, Old School RuneScape, Mario Kart 64, Smash Brothers Melee. I am biased to love these games, and I don't want anything changed about them because I look back with rose-colored glasses. I remember these moments when I was a kid. I remember these moments of playing with games with other people I love, and having good, enjoyable memories of those moments. And I don't want those moments and memories to be overshadowed by the fact that a new version, a crappier version, comes out and somewhat spoils previous history. I think this is something that happened with Diablo and Diablo Immortal in particular. Immortal comes out with really bad monetization. And if Diablo 2 was not perceived so much as a fan favorite in a great IP, Diablo Immortal's controversy wouldn't have been such a big deal. This is a very fair point by him, and I can understand what he's saying. But let's continue. He doesn't stop there. So as we get through it, he says, secondly, games have changed so much in the 20 odd years since it came out. Competition, the number of products, maturity of the industry, game theory education, all sorts of factors make it harder to make something groundbreaking. This is another pretty astute point. You can see why this guy is an OG. Effectively, what he's saying is this industry hadn't matured fully. All of the money hadn't arrived in the industry yet to realize that games were actually printing money for big companies. There was not a lot of investment going on in these. So the competition was lower because it was really only the people who loved making video games and the people that were in that genre out of passion, not necessarily for the money. So what ends up happening back in the day, you have products like Super Metroid, Smash Bros., all of these high quality products that get created in a more niche industry where the love for it is still higher. So you have quality products, and what is a winner or loser for games back then is how well of a quality of product it has. Now this is swapped with the competition getting bigger and the actual pool of money available getting bigger. People have such a bigger budget for marketing that now games quality are decided by marketing and advertising budget. How many times are you seeing ads for a game that isn't even out yet just shoved down your throat all the time? Right now, games like Marvel Snap, even Diablo Immortal was promoted very heavily. There is advertisements everywhere for modern games. And I think this is one of the key differences that happens now as to back then. It used to be word of mouth and the quality of product would decide if a game is good. And now it's how many millions of dollars they're willing to throw at marketing. Everyone knows Raid Shadow Legends because of the memes, because of the ads, right? This is one such example, so let's continue. He's not really done there, though. He continues. Diablo still has a ton of goodwill in the community. People love the IP and the stories. Diablo 3 has changed a lot from the launch, very true, has a huge following. Millions of people have played and enjoyed Diablo 3. People seem to really like Diablo Immortal as well. Surprisingly, he did say that. And there are disagreements about the business model. The game seems to be doing quite well. One other interesting point he makes here is that the game, just because there are things people don't like about it, doesn't mean it's a dead game. So you're probably, if you're watching my channel on the regular, it might seem like it's a more dead game than it is, because most recently there's been a lot of negative news surrounding the games in terms of updates falling short, people quitting the game, stuff like that. And I have covered these types of negative stories on this channel. Well, because of that, it might seem like it's every day something bad is happening, but that's not always necessarily the case. It just means it's another story that's out there. So you could get a false sense of what's actually going on. The reality is these mobile games are mostly dictated upon marketing budgets and how much they're actually still advertising the game, right? So if there is not a lot of money coming in, there's not a lot of money going out very typically, but because we have Blizzard, we have this big IP of Diablo behind it, they don't necessarily have to make the cash instantly in order to advertise it. They have a much bigger budget, meaning this game, in my opinion, isn't dead yet, because at a minimum, we're going to get fresh blood of new players constantly from them advertising the game. If you don't believe this is the case, just go to Twitter, go to Reddit on your phone. You're going to see Diablo Immortal ads literally everywhere. Promoted ads are very, very common for this game. You can just find them. Plus, they're on YouTube ads too. You can probably see some YouTube ads. I use YouTube Premium, so I don't see them, but you can actually see Diablo. In fact, you might even see one on this video. For all you know, there's a Diablo Immortal ad. So for that reason, the game isn't necessarily dead anytime soon. So if we look in here, he says, lastly, new Blizzard products still have a rabid, dedicated fan base. There's always big events, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. That's kind of how I feel about it as well. Diablo has a rabid fan base. They're going to play the Diablo Immortal because it's the latest Diablo. Once D4 comes out, I'm sure a bunch of people are going to go play D4 because that's the latest Diablo, and the cycle of life will continue. There's just a lot of fans of Diablo. They're going to play the game, whatever is available. They're just going to play it. One other thing to keep in mind, just for transparency's sake, is he did announce he is joining the Torchlight Infinite team. And if you look at Wikipedia since 2016, he was working as an advisor for the Path of Exile release as well. So just for the sake of transparency, he does technically work in the ARPG field, but he does actually work for the competitors for Diablo as of the moment. But the guy seems pretty honest and seems to have some pretty good takes. I thought this was one of the better interviews I had seen because, in my opinion, he cut directly to the heart of what happened with Diablo Immortal, which is two things. Monetization was the problem. There's no denying it. I've said it. Everyone said it. Monetization is the problem. Number two is the fact that Diablo 2 is so loved by everybody. It puts this extra level of, don't touch my Diablo. So when you do touch their Diablo in a way they don't want to be touched, it makes people especially upset. Okay. I also think he makes actually a third really good point. I just really like this interview because he makes points that I myself just very much believe in, which is that the competition of the field is so much larger than it used to be. Like, as a YouTuber, right, I feel like it's the same thing making games as like a YouTuber. Like, if you want to be a basketball player at your high school, you're only competing against the people at your high school. But if you want to be a YouTuber, create a game or something like that, you are competing with every single person on the planet. Like, you are now stepping into a global arena. And I think that video games didn't used to sort of be this mass global arena, and it used to be more about the quality of the game and the word of mouth, but now it's such a bigger industry. You know, the whole drive and production of it with these big billion-dollar companies are in here. The marketing has become such an important tactic that it's almost the primary driver of games these days, which is where the teeter-totter has kind of swapped from how good of a game it is to how good the advertising is. And I've given some examples of this. I mean, I think Marvel Future Revolution advertised, but only for one day, and then the game kind of died. Diablo Immortal still advertising, so there's still players. Raid still advertising, so there's still players. If you're advertising, there is still players, which means you need a massive marketing budget. So with all that being said, some really smart points by this guy. I'm going to link off to the article. Feel free to read it. It was by Lauren Bergen right here. Great article. Great points by David Brevik. Let me know what you actually thought about this interview down below and your take on the whole situation. Love y'all. Consider subscribing if you want to. If not, don't worry about it. And I'll see you on the next video.